When Evening Star hauled the last Pines Express in 1962, no one could have foreseen that a 9F might again steam on Somerset and Dorset metals. The Somerset and Dorset Railway Heritage Trust now have that opportunity to make the dream come to fruition, and to see its own BR Standard Class 9F locomotive at Midsummer Norton. 92207 Morning Star spent just over 5 years working for British Railways before its untimely withdrawal from service. Purchased in 1986 by Keith Bottomley, she left the famous Wooden Brothers scrap yard in Barry, and has been under steady restoration since then. Now as a running chassis, Keith offered her for sale to the Trust for £150,000. Included in the sale was the boiler and 80% of the parts required to complete the restoration to working order. It is estimated that the total cost to restore the locomotive will be in the region of £500,000, which will include the fabrication of a new tender and the overhaul of the boiler. Keith continues to lead the restoration of the engine, with the support of Barry Papworth, the Trust Chief Mechanical Engineer. Both men have successfully restored a 9F to steam before, 92212, which ran for many years on the Mid-Hants Railway. Keith and Barry have now gathered an expert team of engineers who are busy fabricating and assembling the myriad of parts that make up the locomotive. The Trust have also devised a clear and achievable plan to return 92207 to steam in 2029, for the first time in 65 years. "We have the team, we have the experience, we have the target, and we have the plan," said Keith. So, how far has the project moved on? A visit to the site in Dorset revealed the latest levels of restoration.
Hello everybody, welcome to the 9F shed down in a secure location in Poole. This is the 9F behind us. The shed was built by us a number of years ago, and we have tenure of this shed by and large until we're ready to move the locomotive to Midsummer Norton, we believe. New buffers fitted from an '08, would you believe, from MC Metals in St Rollox, Glasgow. New buffer beam, new steps, front steps. This pony wheel was cut in Barry in 1980. We had new wheels cast along with 80072, new tyres done by Ring Rollers in South Africa, and a guy called Bill Jeffries fitted it all together, ultrasonic the axle, fitted all the wheel sets together in Swindon Works. It was the last commercial job they did at Swindon Works carriage shed, and that was the new front wheel assembly. So then we started putting everything back together. The lubrication pots there, which is the oil for the pony assembly, and the underkeeps. Maker's plate built 1959 Swindon, so it was the 13th last one built for the railways at Swindon Works. The last one in the batch was Evening Star. The first one in the batch was 92203 Black Prince, as it's called now. And these oil pots were made by a chap called Phil Oldfield. The pipework's been done by Steve Jeffrey, that takes it down to the flexible pipes under here, so as the pony truck moves around, the flexible pipes move the oil with it. The bottom of the pony truck is grease lubricated, and you can see there the grease nipples either side that go through to the axle box horn guides that go up and down. Underneath there are brand new underkeeps for the pony truck with a drain plug and a filler cork, a threaded filler cork there, so that's finished. The draw hook was loose when it was in Barry. We've fitted a new rubber and metal assembly and a new nut on the end. The vacuum pipe work has been reassembled to this dummy rest, and the pipe work will start to go along the engine for the whole of the system when we're ready, but this front bit's been done. If we go around this side, this small assembly here is the front brake shaft, and this is brand new, a lot of this. These two plates here were cut in Barry, so we made brand new plates. We made a new trunnion block, which is a 3.5 thread per inch coarse thread, so that's all new, that's ready to go on, and these are all grease ready, and over the next few days we'll put this brake shaft on towards the front of the engine underneath. This is a superheater header. That was the engine's superheater header that was removed at Barry. We've managed to recover it. It'll need all new studs, new facing, etc. But we've got the main item here, which would cost us an absolute fortune to make new. Under this plastic here is the steam brake cylinder for the tender. So this is one of the parts we've got all ready for the tender. That's brand new. We cast it, we machined it, we made everything inside, and that's all ready to go when we do the tender. Come over this back here, you will see some cast iron bearers. These are the side bearers that hold the rocking grate and the fire grate on the locomotive. These are brand new castings, they're just rusty from the weather, it doesn't matter. These will be a slight amount of machining on that, and then they will go in above the ash pan. This big one here is the centre one. That's again a brand new casting. That's ready just to be a slight bit of machining on it, and then it can be dropped in again above the ash pan once the ash pan's in. We've got all the steel for the ash pan in segments, cut and bent, ready to be made, and that'll be made at Midsummer Norton after we've made the cab. That's a good fabrication job for us to get our teeth into. Again, the other side of the oil pots with the pipe work for the pony. These valves and cylinders have been rebored. That's the valve, that's the cylinder. The steam goes into the valve, and depending on whether it's inlet or exhaust, it pushes the piston backwards and forwards. So these have all been rebored, ready to receive new pistons and end covers. 16 feed Silvertown lubricator, which we managed to get. It's been overhauled and it's ready to be finished off. There's a split feed pump on the top of it that needs to go where that cork is, and then that is ready. It needs a sight glass cover, which Stephen Jeffries made, and a sight glass. These wheels have all been turned to mainline standard, reprofiled years ago by Ian Riley to the latest standards. The axle boxes have all been overhauled and re-white metal. The journals and wheel sets are all done, ready for the next stages. Lots and lots of parts. That, for example, it just happens we know what these are. These are the atomizer brackets that will go on the front, on the rear face of the two cylinders. These are typical pipe clips that we will be fitting fairly soon. And a chap called Richard Kellaway has made lots more pipe clips to the drawings, so we're able to work on fixing all these over the next few days. The grease pipe work, all the fittings have been made, so these are grease nipples for the parts that go to grease this bearing up there, which is the reverser cross shaft and return spring, and the sandboxes which are between the frames and these big pipes where you fill the sand from the running board on the side of the locomotive, which isn't there obviously, that comes off the boiler later, but those are about the height of the running board, maybe 6 or 10 inches above the running board is that filler cap, and they're brand new, they've been made and fitted. These grease blocks are brand new, and as you can see, we've started fitting all the grease pipe work. There are 2 or 3 sets of those blocks throughout the locomotive, and again, lots of work's been done on this, fitting the grease system. When we finish the grease system, we'll do the oil system, which is bigger pipe than this. This is 1/4 inch outside diameter, quarter inch bore. The oil is 3/8 inch bore, so we'll be working on the oil after that. This is all the copper pipe, which is thick wall copper pipe that's been purchased in 6 metre lengths to do the oil and grease systems. You can see lots and lots of fittings, which we believe, fingers crossed, that we made all the fittings for the whole system. So those are some studs that will may be needed, may not be needed for that. And some more fittings, lots of different fittings. If I take one out for you, these are grease system fittings with the taper there. The pipe that goes onto that has a flared trumpet end, and somewhere in this, on this side, we've got all the flared pipes. These are the flexible pipes that go into things called the underkeeps. That is a single oil pot to go on the motion as we start fitting the motion. But these underkeep flexible pipes, at the bottom of the axle box is a gunmetal tray, gunmetal tray that has a spring-loaded pad underneath. We've got all the castings, and those are currently being machined at Midsummer Norton. When they're ready, they will be slid into the bottom of the axle boxes, the pads put in, filled with oil. There is something called a trimming, comes down into the oil that soaks up the oil at a relatively slow rate, and the spring-loaded pad pushes up against the journals, which is where the axles go across, and then slightly bigger diameter journals, pushes up against those journals to keep them oiled as the locomotive proceeds. And the lubricator that I just showed you, there's one on each side. As the engine moves, motion rods move the lubricator backwards and forwards, move the oil pumps back, and those pump oil down the oil lines into those underkeeps. These are cylinder clothing studs. The cylinder castings have insulation and then a thin clothing that goes round, and these screw into the castings. That is a standoff for the insulation, and set screws then bolt the thin cladding, we'll call it, on around the cylinder.